Hi, I'm Olivia Patchell. I'm the Family and Consumer Science Extension Agent for Currituck and Camden counties. And I'm joined today by Sheila Gregory, the Family and Consumer Science Program Assistant for Currituck County. She is going to be demoing our recipe. The recipe can be found in the description for this video. We are going to be doing a whole wheat pasta with beans and greens. I'll also drop the recipe in the chat pod if you want to follow along. We're utilizing a recipe from Med instead of Meds. This recipe is helping us to increase our whole grains. So we're going to be using whole wheat pasta. And we'll talk a little bit about whole grains while Sheila's cooking. But first, let's go ahead and jump over to Sheila on the stovetop and see what she's got going on over there. She's starting out to cook our Swiss chard. This recipe calls for 2 pounds, which is approximately 10 to 12 cups of packed leaves, and then it's going to be cooked down, so it will shrink quite a bit. She has already removed the stems of this Swiss chard and cut it into some strips. We utilized for this recipe several different types of Swiss chard. We have the rainbow, which has that yellow or the red stem, as well as the white chard. And you can get either of these readily available at the grocery store. They have a similar taste, just a different color. So you can get either of those when you're shopping for this recipe. And again, we'll destem those and then cut them into 1-inch strips before they go into the pot. And all you have to do is just pull them off the stem very easily. And you also want to make sure that you give them a good wash before you cook them. We are also boiling a water. We have actually pre-cooked our noodles, but you'll want to go ahead and cook those noodles. We are utilizing whole wheat noodles, 8 ounces of those. You can get the spaghetti or any shape that you'd like for this recipe. So we're cooking the Swiss chard until it is soft. That's going to take about 5 minutes, and then we're going to remove it from the water and put it in an ice bath. So you'll notice that Sheila's cooking the Swiss chard and she has an ice bath available when once the leaves have wilted. So we're hoping to get these leaves nice and wilted. It should take about 5 minutes. So while that's cooking for just a little bit longer, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about whole grains and whole wheat pasta. So I have hopefully the ability to share with you this continuum of whole grains. There we go. So this continuum of carbohydrates choice starts out over here on the right, which is something you should eat less of. And we want to move from the right to the left, eating more of these more complex carbohydrates, which are going to include our whole wheat pasta, our whole wheat bread, and then those unprocessed whole grains. So you'll notice on the right, we have the processed or refined grains, the white flour bread or the white wheat bread, the potatoes, and the white pasta. And so we're going to try to move to the this whole wheat option. And this is found at medsinsteadofmeds.com. I want to also draw your attention to how to choose 100% whole grains. So when you're looking, they do try to trick you a little bit on the packaging. So the place to look for whether or not you're utilizing a whole grain product or a whole wheat product is the ingredient list. So right there near the top, the first ingredient should say the word whole wheat flour. A lot of times they'll say wheat flour. So all flour, whether it's enriched or whether it's whole, is made from wheat. So that does seem to get a little bit tricky, but you're looking for the word, especially the word whole wheat, whole grain. So you're looking for the word whole. And if you'll draw your attention here to this grain of wheat, you'll see that there are 3 different parts of the the wheat germ, or the wheat, the germ, the endosperm, and the bran. So we do utilize the endosperm and the bran when we are looking at whole wheat products. And then for enriched or processed white flour, we just utilize the endosperm. So the bran here is actually what's giving it the brown coloring. So this handout I did link in the description of the video, and I will also link it again in the chat just so you have it if you need it. So that is kind of the rundown of of figuring out whether you're utilizing a whole wheat product. Let's go back over to Sheila, see what she's got going on at the stovetop. So she has been cooking down her Swiss chard. It's actually looking really nice and wilted. You'll notice too that it'll, as you cook it, it will get that nice green color. When she's ready to put it in that ice bath, she will drain it from the hot water. And you don't have to put it in the ice bath for long, but we want to go ahead and shock it. And what that does is preserve those spoilage enzymes and kind of keep it at the state where it's at, so it doesn't get any more cooked really than we have already cooked it. Because if you leave it in that warm water, or if you leave it all together clumped up warm, it will continue to cook. This is called carryover cooking. Chefs sometimes say that the meat needs to rest or continue to cook, and that's kind of what they're talking about. The next steps in our recipe will be to begin to heat up our oil and cook our onions. So we're going to cook these onions until they're translucent. We'll also add in our pepper flakes and our spaghetti sauce and the beans. So something interesting about this recipe, instead of utilizing a meat protein, we are utilizing a bean protein. We have canned garbanzo beans or any type of white beans for this recipe is great. You want to make sure that you drain them and rinse them before you cook with them. You'll also want to make sure that you utilize these 2 tablespoons of olive oil to get to keep the onions from sticking, as well as give you that nice flavor. And then we're going to choose a spaghetti sauce that has a limited amount of added sugars. Sometimes you can even find some brands in the refrigerated case. When I was looking at the pasta sauce in the grocery store this week, I noticed that they have, all the brands have a low added sugar or less added sugar option for the sauce. So that's something to look for. So I wanted to talk a little bit more while Sheila's cooking. We're looking down in this nice pot. It smells delicious here. I wish you guys could smell this. The recipe here is, it is good. So we want to talk a little bit more about whole grains. So there are a lot of health benefits to choosing whole grains. If you want to reduce your risk for some types of cancer, bowel disorders, heart disease, and cholesterol, stroke, high blood pressure, obesity, and type 2 diabetes, we should work to increase the amount of whole grains we consume in our diet. One of the things I like to remind people of is that whole grains are a great way of, stripping some of that bad fat out of your body and moving stuff through your body. When you start to eat whole grains, I encourage you to do it moderately. Take your time. Maybe you do half whole wheat pasta and half regular or enriched white pasta. The same with bread as you begin to move into that whole grain option. because it could cause some intestinal distress, especially if your body is not used to processing the whole grain. So remember, we talked about there's a more of that wheat that we are utilizing than we had typically. So your body is just learning how to process that a little bit differently. This is the same kind of process for people who don't eat a lot of meat and then all of a sudden try to eat a lot of meat. Sometimes it will cause intestinal distress as well. It's just your body's way of adjusting to learning to digest that product. So when you're looking at fiber, whole grains are known for their high fiber. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that as well. So there are two types of dietary fiber in whole grains, soluble and insoluble. Oats, barley are high in soluble fiber and are an easy way to increase both types of fiber in your diet is to choose ready to eat or ready to cook whole grain breakfast cereals. Whole grain cereals have 3 to 7 times more fiber in them per serving than those refined grain cereals. Whole wheat bread can have about 4 to 6 times more fiber per slice than white bread. So Sheila I think we might be ready to plate this up. Sheila has cooked everything together. She's added in the Swiss chard and the pasta. And she's going to show us how beautiful it looks in our nice bowls. Again, this recipe does not call for cheese, but of course, every time I eat pasta, I like to eat a little bit of cheese. So you could top it with a little bit of cheese, but it's actually delicious as it is. You want to make sure that you get some beans and some Swiss chard in there, and it looks delicious. Thank you, Sheila, for plating that up for us. So let me close us out today with just reminding you to check the Med Instead of Meds website. I think, yep, there we go. So I've got the Meds Instead of Meds, the whole grain handout, if you'd like to, that I referenced earlier, if you'd like to check that out. We also have the recipe in either on Facebook in the chat or below, and then on YouTube in the little side chat bar. If you need any other information about whole grains, we'd love to help you here at the Extension office. You can contact us via email or phone. My email address is olivia_patchell@ncsu.edu. You can find that information on our website. And our number here is 252-232-2261. Sheila, I would be happy to help you increase the amount of whole grains in your diet. And March is Nutrition Month, so keep an eye out for all the nutritional education that will come out this month, including information on Med Instead of Meds. And thank you guys for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed this recipe, and we'll see you again next month on the first Tuesday at 10 o'clock.